So that kind of gets into it. You some things you're using debt for, and they talk about that's good debt. But the bad debt, consumer debt, because you're living beyond your means, because you just need to eat today, and my money is going to run out this week. So since my money's going to run out this week, I have to borrow more money so that I can get to the next paycheck. So you borrow money and you borrow more. And is that mooching? You're using a system, utilizing a debt system to keep yourself afloat. Are there other choices available to you? Would an independent, mature person not take that consumer loan?
Hey there, this is our podcast, Do You Have a Minute?, in which my dad and I dive into deep discussions about both the most profound and most mundane questions of life. While we know we don't have all the answers, probably none of them actually, we are opening our minds to new perspectives, and most importantly, we are having a good time in conversation. Join us as we explore the unknown together.
Okay, I'm ready.
Excellent.
So, you have a minute?
I do have a minute.
All right.
Oh, you know what? I always have a minute. I have minutes
You always
everywhere.
do? Yeah. It doesn't matter what time of day it is or what time of night.
Yeah.
You have a minute.
Got minutes.
All right. And one after the other could be hours, but we don't necessarily have hours, but we always have minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So that's why this is convenient. So what if you stole minutes? What if you stole minutes?
Like minutes from someone else?
Can you steal minutes from someone else?
Like let me steal a minute of your time.
A minute of your time. Yeah. It takes the dedication. It takes the agreement of that person, though, to allow you to steal that minute.
Yeah, you're saying let me.
If they say no, I'm not going to steal the minute. I'm not going to allow you to steal the minute. And this is our topic. We'll get to the topic in a second. Maybe a second, maybe a minute. If you're going to steal someone's time, they have to agree to it. If they agree to it, then it's an agreement. It's an agreed theft of time. And it really isn't stolen, right? It's agreed to. So if it's agreed to, it's not stolen. Even if you feel like you want to steal it. I want to steal you for an hour from whatever else you're doing. But if you say, oh, it's okay with you, it's okay with both of you, then it's an agreement. So an agreement is different than a theft. And the purpose, the topic today is what's it called? Mooching. Which, did you look up the definition of mooching? Technically, it's obtaining something you didn't pay for, or begging or stealing. Begging or stealing something you didn't pay for. So if I'm not going to pay for your time, I'm going to ask for it. Say, do you have a minute? Yes. That's an agreement. Then it's not mooching. It's mooching if I didn't pay for it. If I gain your agreement, but that's not in the definition. The definition says that you didn't pay for.
Yeah, I wonder if you can't exactly translate mooching to stealing someone's time. Mooch is off of others. So like maybe if you were mooching someone's time, you'd be like always asking them to do stuff for you.
A pain in the neck.
Yeah, maybe.
I can't hang out with them because they always talk too much. Just steal all my time. The other definition of mooching is like lingering, to linger, which I've never heard it used in that respect.
Like slumming?
But slumming. Just doing nothing, just hanging around.
Okay.
So I've not heard that.
I haven't heard that
used
either.
that way, but it's in the dictionary as a reason.
The definition of mooching.
That kind of makes sense, though, is if you're just going to linger there, you're kind of stealing the time of whatever. You're wasting your time, stealing your time by doing nothing.
Yeah. So what was the other definition then? Is to get things from another or live off the generosity of others without providing any return payment or benefit.
Okay, right.
Okay.
So with a conversation, it's if you get agreement from the person, even if you're stealing, let's say you go in and you obtain their gold and silver, or their Les Miserables. Say you obtain their silver from their drawer, and you get caught by the sheriff, and they take you back, and you mooch that. But then he says, "Oh, you forgot the candlesticks. I wanted to give you these too." Puts them in the bag. So you recall that statement
from the movie. I haven't read the book, but yes.
From the movie and from the book as well. I mean, he comes back in. The sheriff brings him in and says, "I believe he stole from you, Jean Valjean, this prisoner, and he's stealing." He says, "No, I gave him those things, and you forgot to take the candlesticks." So he stopped the mooching by reacting to it in a different manner.
Well, it was still mooching because Jean Valjean didn't give him back anything. There was no return.
Okay, I don't know.
So it's
charity. Did it turned from mooching to charitable at that point?
Yeah. Can something be charitable and also mooching at the same time?
That's the first question. Is what's the difference? What's the difference in what delineates charity from mooching and mooching from charity? Or are they the same thing? So that's what we need to discuss. And Jean Valjean's action with, I forgot what the priest's name was, but whatever the priest gave him, and he said, I'm going to change this. You didn't steal from me. You weren't mooching off of me, because I gave that to you, and I sent you out, and you didn't take the candlesticks. I thought you were going to take these as well. So, and then he whispers to him, "I've bought you.
I bought you.
Now live your life appropriately." He said, I've just bought your life back by giving you these things. So that was what the priest gave him, that gift. So it's a gift. It's charity. He didn't give it to him as charity. He gave it to him as a gift, because he said, "This is the gift I give to you. I'm giving your life back. Now live it appropriately from this point forward."
Yeah.
And Jean Valjean did. He changed his whole life, changed his whole outlook, even though he ended up still being hounded the rest of his life.
So it feels like to me that charity has a kind of a good connotation. Like but there's charity cases too. Like if someone's talking about a charity case, that means they can't make do themselves. They always have to beg off of other people, or maybe not beg. They're just always there looking like they need help, and so people are always helping them.
So is there a possibility of being a moocher and a charity case? Is a charity case a moocher? Receiving charity as the moocher? I think that's the case. That most often that's the case.
Yeah,
I believe.
So charity is not different from mooching. And you can't turn mooching into not mooching just by giving freely, because I think a lot of people who are mooching off of someone else is receiving that stuff freely. It's not like they're stealing. They're not stealing money from their parents. Their parents are like, "Yeah, here, I'll give you money because I care about you." And the kids are just not doing anything to repay it,
To repay it, or to gain independence, or to gain stability on their own.
Yeah.
They're happy to be a ward of the family.
Yeah.
Still a trust fund baby. And let's say the trust fund is a multi-million-dollar trust fund, and the child just doesn't grow up and wants to just be the trust fund baby, and is allowed to do that. They're mooching off their parents, so that still matches the definition, even though because it's not their money.
Right.
So examples of that, I don't know any real trust fund babies. I don't know if who they are, but Donald Trump, we had to talk about the politics that's in front of us. He was given $1 million to start out his career, and I don't believe he went back. I think that's in his books somewhere, where he talks about, that's what I had to start, and I started and built it from there. So he became a self-made man on that first $1 million infusion.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he failed 20 times, whatever. He might have failed at times, but he picked it back up, and he made things work.
He didn't ask for more outside of that $1 million.
Yeah, and he didn't stay on his dad's coattails his whole life. He went off and did his own thing quite young. He got independent, surpassed his father very quickly. And that's what kids are supposed to do, I think.
Yeah.
You know, they get an inheritance or a bequeathment of the family trust, and instead of just being a trust fund baby and mooching on it for the rest of your life, they took that and built something else, built it. Now, chances are, when his dad passed away, all that added to his fortunes
His
as well,
inheritance.
because inheritances still occur, and they happen when someone passes on. Someone has to care for it, and someone has to be prepared to care for it.
Right.
You know, that's the story of the ultimate gift, the ultimate gift with Jim Stovall. And you fully understand that story. You know that story. It's a movie.
No, I've seen it. So you're saying it's a movie, and now I'm remembering that I've seen it. Yeah.
Right. And Jason, I think Jason's his name, the son, the grandson of Red, was just a trust fund baby. He was off spending $25,000 a night in Paris, and spending all of his parents' money,
Right.
and just being a no good, low life trust fund baby. Didn't even want to go to the funeral. Showed up on the outside. So the whole story is how bad a person he was, how much of a moocher he was, and a useless individual. And then through the attorney and through the will, he went through a number of challenges to gain the trust of the attorney and of the estate in order to qualify to manage.
Right. And they were like literal challenges, like do this, and he went and did it, and then
Yeah.
next thing, do this, right?
Yeah. And he had to go and learn how to work.
Yeah.
Work hard. So build this fence.
All right.
And he tried to build the fence, and he couldn't do it very well, but he worked all day and all day. And then they ripped the fence out because he didn't do a good enough job, and started them over again.
Yeah. So is this
So you have to
based
learn.
off of a book?
Yeah, Jim Stovall wrote the Ultimate Gift.
Oh, okay.
It was to teach these concepts. Don't be a moocher. Don't be a trust fund baby. Go through these steps. And I think there were 12 things that he had to accomplish. And in that, you're building a life. You're building stability. You're building strength on your own, independence, as opposed to being dependent. So a moocher is a dependent. Would that be right?
Moocher is dependent on other people. Yeah. I think that fits.
So, and it's appropriate to a point when you're maturing. When you're immature, an immature person is going to be a moocher.
Yeah. My kids are mooching off of me all the time. I have to feed them.
Right.
I have to do their
They
laundry.
don't have any other choice. And if they took the other choice, we talked about that. If they said, I want to be, what is it called when they leave the home?
Emancipation.
Emancipated. I want to be emancipated. I want to do my own thing. Then they're claiming that, I guess, claiming that they're no longer a moocher off of you.
Yeah. They no longer want to be that.
Yeah. So there's appropriate ways to build that, to get out of that mooching attitude.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people stay in relationships, like whether they're young adults or married to someone that they don't like so much, but these people just don't want to put forth the effort that it would take to become independent, and so they stay in the relationship and stay, I guess, in that mooching role.
Stay dependent. So a stay-at-home mom without kids?
Without kids.
I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose you could, like black and white, you could say a stay-at-home mom with no kids, if she's got no other way to bring in, like, to win the bread,
Well,
I guess. Maybe.
Let's say she doesn't need to be a breadwinner. Say the family is doing well enough. The husband's operating it. I mean, okay, let's use Donald Trump again.
Okay.
What's his wife's name?
Melania.
Melania. She used to work, but she's not working.
She doesn't need
now.
to.
She hasn't had to. And her kids are raised, but she's still, she's writing a book. She's written a book. It's going to be published soon. So I guess she's working, but she doesn't have to. And if she doesn't have to and she chooses not to, if she's just the first lady of the United States, is that mooching? Is that a mooching position?
And she just lays back and eats bonbons and watches soap operas?
watches soap operas right there in the White House. Let's say that's what she
Is
does.
that a valid existence, do you think?
Well, sure. I mean, she's alive.
At least she's
Valid.
alive.
Yeah, valid meaning, well, and we talked about that. It's not a productive life. It's boring. You would more quickly die when you do just nothing like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why she wrote the book. I think that's why she's always doing stuff anyway. And everyone will.
Because you get bored.
I think everyone will. Yeah, even once your kids move out of the house and you're empty nesters, whoever it is, you're going to find something to do and productive.
Yeah.
Something productive that you can feel, if it's even just quilting or crocheting, or you'll find something.
Right. If you're not a moocher at heart. Right?
Okay, let's say you are a moocher at heart. Let's say that you're and the other people are the welfare moms. Welfare mom. You have kids because they're going to pay you extra to have another kid, another child. You get a higher child tax credit, which just increases your income. And then you're receiving the WIC money and payments, and you get welfare because you're not working, or a disability even because you've convinced them that you've got challenges you can't work. So all of that income, are those people moochers?
Yes. I mean, my gut feeling says yes. What do you think?
Okay, and can you prove it? Can you prove that they are moochers?
You,
Maybe even with just the definition.
So the definition, if they're receiving, let me see, they're getting things from another or living off the generosity of others without providing any return payment or benefit.
Yeah.
So the black and white definition, that they'd be moochers.
I think a welfare recipient in this country is a moocher because they're not providing anything back.
Yeah.
They're not even providing back to the economy. They're buying their food, but just as much as they need to. They might provide back to the drug dealers or whatever. They are providing a little bit back by being a consumer, still being a consumer in the market. But that's not really providing anything back.
I think if I was in that position where I couldn't provide anything back, and I had to live as a ward of the state, how would I feel about being labeled a moocher? Like, I think...
Well, probably about as good as you'd feel about being a ward of the state.
Well, right.
Being called a ward of the state.
Well, is ward of the state have a negative, just as negative as moocher? I mean, like,
I think so.
I don't have a negative feeling about that, I guess. Maybe I should. Maybe I should have a...
Well, and that's, you talk about people that want to have Medicare, Medicaid pay for their long-term care needs. I mean, that's a valid plan. People plan on that. Let's spend down all of our assets so that when I go into a nursing home when I'm 85 years old and my last 10 years, I'm going to let the state pay for my health care.
Uh-huh.
So help me spend my money. Let's go on a cruise.
Uh-huh.
And let's do all this stuff when I'm 60, 65. So when I turn, 85, 80, and I feel like going into the nursing home, I'll spend out all my money and then let the award of the state for the final years of my life. And my kids can visit me every day, all day long, but they're not getting no inheritance. I'm not going to try to keep my inheritance, but I want to go and just relax and retire to a nursing home.
Yeah.
But that's a ward of the state. That is a moocher. The plan is to mooch off of the government for your final years.
Right.
The plan of a welfare recipient. There's someone who says unemployment benefits, 26 weeks or whatever it really is. But they extended it. I don't know how long you can claim unemployment, but they're happy to get fired from their job and go claim unemployment. And they'll be on that until the benefits run out before they start seriously looking for other jobs. It's part of the program that they're supposed to be looking for jobs. But if they're making enough money on unemployment, welfare benefits, that they don't have to work, they choose not to. And that's the mooching attitude.
Right.
As opposed to someone what's the other person going to do? Who wants to be independent and provide for their own.
Yeah.
If you want to provide for their own and you want to live not as a moocher, you're going to get a job tomorrow. You're going to start flipping burgers instead of accept the unemployment check. You don't want to accept government welfare because you don't want to be a ward of the state because there is a stigma to that.
What if you have physical impairments that keep you from doing most anything, and like you
So there's
can't drive a car anywhere, like you have to take the bus, the wheelchair bus.
and you can't sit at your work job. You can't sit at a job, even on an assembly line. You can't stand that long. You can't sit that long.
I mean, there's certainly, definitely. I said dirtly because that's definitely and certainly together. I always do that.
You could certainly do that.
There's definitely and certainly jobs that you can do that you don't have to stand. You don't have to move your arms even. You don't have to go anywhere.
You don't have to sit for hours. You can do that.
But the problem is those jobs usually have some sort of training or education that you have to get before you can do it. And
it's possible.
And how do you pay for that if you can't work in the first place?
It's also possible you could be a scammer, and they'll pay you to just get on the phone with people, whether you really know how to read the script or not.
A telescammer? Like legitimately
scamming,
or just like sales calls?
Well, there are those. Well, it could be sales calls, could be legitimate. You're just working for the jacuzzi company and trying to get people to talk.
Yeah.
A sales position. The sales positions don't require college degrees. They don't require anything except how to read a script and how to have enough dedication to be there long enough to be able to get into a mode
right.
of communication with the people you're talking to.
Right. And my difficulty with that would be the ethics of being a salesperson or cold calling people. Like, which one is worse, having to cold call and annoy people with something that they never wanted in the first place, or live off the state?
Which holds a higher stigma? Yeah,
well, it's not stigma to me. Like it's a personal decision.
So that's why in the first place I used the word scam. If you are just going to be there to bother people, then you're not
providing a service.
And they're willing to pay you for it. They're willing to pay you for it because what you're doing, if your goal is just to get one more bit of information out of them so they can sell your list again to someone else, they can confirm, yes, he answered the phone with this name and that's his number and he gave me his email address. And so you get extra bonuses for gaining other data for the list so that you can sell a valid list to the next person.
Yeah.
So those list sellers, and I believe there's people out there that do that. They have to. They're just calling to confirm.
Just to confirm.
Someone actually answered the phone, and this is who they are. They confirmed this is who they are. They gave me this other bit of information.
Yes.
And you keep them talking, see how much they're going to give you. How much can I get out of you? Because a stronger list costs more. So that still requires dedication. A moocher isn't going to spend enough time to dedicate to learn that task of talking to people.
Yeah, not even that task. Right.
Yeah. And a sales task is hard. It's difficult. I mean, the good car salesmen aren't pushy. The people who are trying to learn are pushy because they're trying to learn.
Okay.
But the professionals have their clientele. They've been selling for years. They've developed the ability to benefit the people that are coming asking questions about cars. And they're not pushy with it. There's some people in the financial markets that are very pushy and very, they have to make money right now today. And if you're not the person, then I'm going to disqualify you and stop talking to you and move on to someone else. So those calls, those people, there's a place for that. It's boiler room type information. So if you're selling something and you need to get a quick sale or a quick disqualification, just move on to the next call. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the mooching concept. No person is going to go into a boiler room or a phone call there if they're a moocher. What they're going to do is they're going to want to sit on in their couch at their house, watch the soap operas, whether they have bonbons to eat or not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're just eating Fritos because that's all they can afford. They can't afford the chocolates.
Yeah.
They're happy eating Fritos, watching the TV. And they get involved in the requirement. Well, to qualify for that, you have to prove that you're incapable of doing anything else.
Yeah, and sometimes that's
So
really
does a
easy to
moocher,
prove because you've been that way your whole life. And so the people you're mooching off of are the people that feel responsible for you from the start.
other people. So do you have to prove to the first person? How do you prove to the first person that you mooch from that you deserve that mooching? That that's your role. My role in life is to be a charity case, and I need help.
Yeah, that would begin at birth. It'd be really easy, I think, at birth.
There's got to be a turning point there. There's the point they're unconscious, not conscious about what they're doing. They're just instinctively receiving everything because they can't do it on their own. But as soon as they start walking and picking things up, they can select to eat this or not eat this. So at some point they choose, I don't like this responsibility of getting my own food. I'd rather just sit here at the table and not eat until they put food on my plate.
Uh-huh.
That's a little close to home. I used to do that.
You were a moocher?
I was a moocher at the table, even in the family, and all of my siblings do it. My parents do it, and I wouldn't ask for food. I would just sit there and not eat, and until they put something on my plate, and then I would eat it.
Yeah, were you?
And so that's what.
Was that a decision you made, or were you trained into doing that?
It was something I grew into. Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't know that I consciously said I'm not going to do that, but that was when I got married. My wife learned that. My girlfriend at the time went to dinner with us, and she said, "Why are you just doing that? Why are you giving him this stuff?"
Uh-huh.
I said, "Well, my siblings said, well, if we don't feed him, he won't eat.
Uh-huh.
Well, if we don't put it on his plate, he's not going to ask for it. He's not going to get it.
He's not even going to get it."
And she said, that's immature. And clearly it's immature. So a moocher is immature, someone who's not. And I was, I was 21 years old.
Uh-huh.
I'd been off on my own in college for quite a while. And I still went home and they still had that feeling. And I still fell into that process of letting them put food on my plate and I'll eat it. I was busy doing other things. I had a girlfriend. I mean, what else am I going to do? I don't need to eat. I don't need to get my food. So, and maybe I thought it was a status symbol that, watch what's going to happen. I'm going to sit at this table. I've got so much power. My plate's just going to get filled with stuff.
Sure.
Maybe moochers feel they have power. They don't have to work for what they get. And I think many welfare recipients kind of feel that way, or even disability recipients. They get their $3,000 a month or $2,500 a month that's coming to them for their disability, their living wage, their income, without having to do anything for it. And so they enjoy that, and they think it's a status symbol as opposed to a stigma against them.
Maybe. I wonder if it's difficult to mentally break out of being a moocher or on welfare, or if you're in there, then you have a difficult time thinking how you can be different
any other way. Yeah, you are what you think about. That was Earl Nightingale's Strangest secret. If you think about that it's a status symbol for me to not have to work for my money, the grasshopper and the ants have to work. They're all out working. The grasshopper says, "What are you working for? Food's free. It's all here."
Yeah.
So to break that and that's what Dave Ramsey talks about with his, debt-free mentality. You can't get to a debt-free mentality just by thinking it. It takes a psychological change. And you can't just follow the steps. Check the boxes, check all these boxes, and you'll be there. If you checked all the boxes and you didn't change your mental state, the psychology of debt freedom,
right?
If you don't have that psychology, you're going to drop right back into debt, because as soon as you get to the next table, it's going to come back up again. That's what you'll do.
Yeah.
It's automatic. You'll always think what you've always thought. So you have to change that. That has to change. So we do all start out as moochers as children. How do we change to being independent? How do we decide to leave the house, leave father and mother, and become independent.
Would there be evidence in history of people wanting independence and wanting responsibility? In psychology, maybe,
Or in
that's
literature?
something that I don't know, Sigmund Freud or you know,
Kant,
other people,
or
like, maybe they would say kids, once they reach a certain age, they want to break away and start being in charge. And maybe it's a personality thing, like maybe only type 4 people do that, and type 2 people are always trying as much as they can to skirt responsibility and mooch off of others. I don't know. I don't even know what type 4 people are.
and I don't know
what
that
type
it's a
2
personality
people
type.
are.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a personality type. I think it's maturity, though. As you gain maturity, you lose the mooching tendency. So I would put it on the maturity scale.
Okay, and some people just don't
Immature
gain
to mature.
maturity.
And they don't want to gain maturity. That's responsibility. If you gain maturity, you're taking responsibility, and you're living your life with purpose. And I think the psychologists state that if you don't have a purpose in life, then you're miserable. That's a miserable life.
Yeah.
If you're just interested in everyone giving you what you need, and you're self-centered and not living with a purpose and external from yourself, that's misery. And people can live in it, and that's why you watch the soap operas. Your whole life is those other people's stories, and my 600-pound life. You're just 600 pounds sitting in the bed or in your chair, and you never move. So kids normally break out of that because they want to be mature. They want to say, I can do this. I can accomplish something. This sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, so
it's into people's lives.
It happens instinctually for some people, or for most people. Maybe some people it doesn't happen.
And you move to the word instinctual. That means it's evident in the animal kingdom as well, just as quickly, just as eagerly.
Yeah.
So instinct, as animals operate just on instinct. They don't have this consciousness or the determination to be independent, but they gain independence.
Right.
Any child animal, a cub or a colt, a calf, they all break away. They don't have to be weaned. They don't have to be taken away from their mother. They will leave their mother. There's a time for that, and they'll pick it. They'll do it, and the mother will be fine with it. They'll both separate from each other.
Everyone will be fine.
Yeah,
because
you
they
can
matured.
wean them early. Yeah, they've matured to that point. And so if you decide to wean a calf early, you can wean the calf early and just feed him for a short period of time until there's enough, until he learns how to eat on his own, get him mature to the point of eating on his own, and he's fine. You just let him out in the pasture.
Uh-huh.
And he never thinks of his mother again, or that mooching idea that all of my food's going to come from that cow. Now all his food, he's hunting for it and searching for it. And at 3 months old, he can be fully independent, where you can, if you just leave him with them, it'll be about a year, sometime between 6 months and a year, they'll separate automatically.
Yeah.
Or instinctually, automatically.
And that's just because it's
based on instinct.
Evolutionarily.
That's the thing I do. Maybe it's evolution, yeah.
Like it's
part of the.
What is the word? Better. It's better. As far as progress goes, as far as living goes, it's better to be independent. You live longer if you're independent. I mean, like, wait a minute though. Like, there's some animals that live in packs because it increases longevity. So I don't know.
Yeah, but they're not dependent. They're independent in that pack. They're choosing to be part of that group.
Okay.
The oxen that fight tail to tail against the cheetahs or whatever's, the circle of oxen, circle of buffalo, they'll all face out with their horns to fight something that's threatening.
Okay.
I heard that someone just talked about that just the other day that I was listening to. And so they work as a group, but they're independent in that group. That's interdependence. Interdependent.
Mm-hmm.
Working as a group, you choose the groups you're going to be part of and the groups you're going to work with, like your employment situations. You can choose that and work, or you can choose to be a moocher and just receive the gift, the charity from the church or the food pantry or the government, and you're just receiving that, and that's what you're living on.
Yeah.
And is it a good thing? So I think you asked that.
Is it beneficial?
Is it appropriate for someone to be on disability and be happy with it?
I think some people maybe, I imagine, if they're on disability and that frees them up to spend a lot of time doing things that they love to do, then that could make them feel like it's very beneficial for them.
That makes it subjective, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on the person, the individual. Still an individual concept.
Yes.
So individually, we get to select whether we are mooching or we are independent. And as a disabled person, I may not be able to do a number of things, but I'm going to do everything I can. You know, I'm in a wheelchair and I only have one leg, and so I can't even stand up. But I don't know, Christopher Reeves, who's a quadriplegic, you know, and you get to that point, you had a very active life, and then all of a sudden you can do nothing. I don't know if he ever went on welfare. He was rich at the time.
Yeah, maybe he couldn't qualify.
Then he was hurt. Maybe he never needed to. And that's what I mean about financial planning. Even people with money, with millions of dollars, will try to spend it all out so that Medicare can pay their final 10 years. But that's a mooching attitude. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just judiciously work your money or buy the insurance policies that allow you to live those 10 years and provide for your own? So that's an individual choice.
That is, yeah.
Individual choice to set up your plan so that it works for you for the long term. And that's kind of what Dave Ramsey's talking about, and that's what he promotes. He doesn't promote go on to Medicaid. Doesn't say be a ward of the state. Don't let other people pay for your life. Work your life so that you can pay your own way, all the way until you pass away, and then even have money to hand down to your heirs.
Yeah, you have to believe that's
excess.
A better way to want to do that.
Mm-hmm. You have to have that philosophy. So it's a change of philosophy.
Right.
Changing from a moocher to an independent thinker needs to be a philosophical change. So, did we talk enough about that? Enough about the psychology of it. What other questions still exist in regard to your choice? So I propose you choose to be a moocher or you choose to be independent. And that's a philosophical choice that you make. Each individual makes it themselves.
Yeah.
Any questions about that?
And I mean, I think I agree that's true. It's a choice. And I think for some people, the choice is made easier by the ability of other people to give to them. It would be, let's see, do I have the capability? Do I have the means? Do I have the resources to be a moocher?
It requires resources. It requires someone there has to be a pool of money or a load of money there.
Somewhere.
That
Someone
you can choose
can
to be
give
a
it to
moocher.
you. I think...
My parents are rich. They've always been rich, and so I'm just going to be taking from them my whole life.
Yeah, well, that's a choice. But like, I'm talking about me specifically. If I decided that I wanted to be a moocher, if me and my husband both decided that we wanted to be moochers, because
okay,
I think it would, if I was going to end up like that, then it would be it would have to be both of us.
You'd have to do it together.
Yeah.
Because that's a presupposed choice that you made. You're together.
Yes.
So together we're going to do it.
I believe that my parents and his parents, you and Mom, and also his parents, have the means to help us live even at our current standard, maybe even. I think you have the means, but I don't believe that you would allow it. And so I don't think that I could beg off of you.
Okay.
So at that first level, I would not be able to become a moocher, even if I really wanted it.
Maybe not this year. Let's say this year that doesn't work.
Okay.
But let's go 10 years down the road. Say 10 years down the road, let's say your parents become multimillionaires and they have 20 or 30 million dollars in their bank because their business just took off and they did this and that, and she started something else, and now there's millions of dollars coming in every year, and there's a $20 million trust fund there.
Mm-hmm.
and let's say that your husband's parents, and I don't know, something happened there that the dad passed away and left a $1.5 million fortune to the mom. And so she's there alone and she doesn't have anything else to do with her money. And she just wants to give it to the kids. She wants to support her kids.
Mm-hmm.
So if the prospect was there that there's enough money and they would like to, you'd have the opportunity. What would it take for you to actually ask and become that person?
I would have to think differently about what I want to do with my life, I think. I mean, right now, even, I work a part-time job and I teach music lessons, and I don't have to. Our budget covers everything, but those are, like, I want to work. Working a physical job keeps my body moving, and I feel good when I do it. I feel good when I'm around those people.
Right.
It's fun.
An accomplishment.
You know, yeah.
Even though you're only accomplishing cleaning toilets.
Even though that's the only thing I'm doing.
Yeah, it's still an accomplishment.
It feels like I'm useful. Like someone has to clean the toilets, and it can be me.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it, and I actually enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. And it does help with our getting out of debt goal, even though it's not necessary. It does help get it. It moves us closer to that.
So you could be right now, regardless of talking about your parents, with your husband's income, you could be a complete moocher right now. You don't have to work.
Yeah.
You can accomplish everything. You'll be out of debt, and maybe you'll be out of debt 6 months sooner if you work, as opposed to not working. And so that 6 months isn't that big deal.
Right.
It's gonna pan out. You could be a moocher now, but you're choosing not to be.
Right.
And that's the choice we're talking about. That's the
choice.
It's the philosophy. It's the mentality. I don't think that someone like you, the way you've described all that, you couldn't step back and be a moocher.
You can't. No.
You won't have the chance. You can't change your mindset and maybe once you get into the growth mindset, the independent mindset, you can't go back to the dependent moocher status unless you're forced into that.
Do you think it's impossible for my mind to be changed back to
go back? Yes.
Okay.
I believe it would be, because even Christopher Reeves, I don't know the story, but I bet if we searched into it and sought his life and what he did, I don't think he became a moocher. I don't think he became a ward of the state. I think he readjusted his income so that it would last his whole life.
Yeah.
And provide his needs continuously. And his kids were happy with that, were fine with that, say yes, and maybe they helped him. But is that mooching if your kids are helping you? Is that a mooching position? Or if you're receiving charity and you're doing all that you can, you're in a position that you're locked up. You can't actually work. And he did movies after he was quadriplegic too. He still did things.
Yeah.
And he was wanted. He's still Christopher Reeves.
Right. They still wanted him.
He was a public speaker. He probably made $10,000 every time he went to an event to speak with whatever he could say. I don't know. He was able to speak. So yeah, I'm sure he made money after that accident.
Yeah.
So what's the other? Yeah, I don't think you can go back. You have to move forward. The progression, eternal progression, or continual progress, and the receding horizon of perfection. I mean, you're always going to be seeing that. If you're of a mindset and a growth mindset, you're always going to be looking to the next thing. There's always an advancement, and you're not going to be happy going backwards.
Right.
To a mooching mentality.
Right. That's kind of that opens up a fear of mine, a fear of suddenly being incapable of doing things. What if I go blind someday? Like, I kind of feel like I want to prepare, but I mean, that would be almost a waste of time because I'm probably not going to go blind someday. Maybe I will.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, do I learn Braille just in case? Or what if I'm deaf? Like, what if I go deaf and I can't listen to podcasts or audiobooks, and I can't hear my kids calling me? That cuts off like half of the things that I do in my life if I can't even hear it.
And those two things you mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you know Jim Stovall? Do you know his disability?
No.
He is legally deaf and legally blind.
Is he really?
But he's written 25 books or something, 20 in the 20s. He's written books, and he dictates them. He can't type. He can't see what he's doing. But he's of the mentality that he's not going to be a ward of the state. He's not just going to sit there. So he's done more than most people as a deaf blind person.
Yeah. My life would just change completely, though. I mean, I would find a way to work. I would find a way to do things. I just would have to not shift gears. I would have to, I'd have to get a whole new car.
Yeah.
But anyway.
The most interesting thing about Jim, he's completely active, and he puts his phone number in his books. His office is available to anyone who reads his books, and he answers the phone. That's the oddest thing about Jim. I called him once.
You talked to Jim?
I had a question. I talked to Jim Stovall, and he talked to me for 10, 15 minutes. And he wasn't trying to push me off the phone saying, you're just an idiot kid in Utah.
Uh-huh.
What am I talking to you for? He said, what are you working on? And I'm happy to help you. What can I help you with? So he uses his time generously. It's like step 7 of Ramsey program. Give back. Whenever you get everything, give back generously of your time, of your resources, of what you need.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I was mooching off him, and he's clearly outside of my realm of people to talk to. But I read Millionaire Map, the Millionaire Map book. Got to the end of it and says, you're making these plans, and here's my phone number in case you have any other questions or would like to let me know what your plans are.
Huh.
I think that might have been what I called him for.
Yeah.
I said I had an idea when I talked to him, which is partly why I'm talking to you about this mooching right now.
It's because you have an idea?
Yeah. Well, I've had an idea.
Right.
And we've operated with it.
Oh.
And,
yes.
And so in that operation,
I must know what it is.
You must know what it is. But it's a mooching idea. Does a bank operate because of the mooching attitude of people?
Well, like I was saying, maybe someone who has a disability can find a job that would pay them enough to cover their living expenses. But in order to get that job, in order to find a job that they're even happy in, like maybe there's a lot of considerations that it has to pay enough to pay for where I'm living and cover my food and stuff. And also I have to enjoy the work. And so, but to qualify for this job, I need to have certain education and certificates, and those cost money. Like I can't get the education for free.
So if you do get offered the education for free, because that's what the government's talking about too. Let's give everyone a college education for free.
Yeah.
Avoid all student loans. Let's pay off all the student loans and make education up to 16, up to a bachelor's degree, public education. So if that's the case and you can get the education for free, are you mooching because of that? I mean, do our kids mooch by going to K through 12 for free? And to take the breakfast and lunch that's provided to them at school for free? Is that mooching? And from a homeschool mentality, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Why would you lock yourself into that socialist program and be a part of that prison system to learn to, eat when they tell you to eat, and when the bell rings, you move from one job to the next? So learn on that conveyor belt. Why would you join the conveyor belt?
The banking question, though.
Right.
Banks offer loans, and you pay them back with interest. So that's not mooching because you're paying back. You've got a return of the payment or the benefit, and you need that sometimes. Okay.
Is it possible not to pay them back?
Yeah, I think
it is. You can default on your loan.
Yeah, and you can declare bankruptcy, and you can.
Right, and then if you declare bankruptcy appropriately, and the judge agrees, you've got the law behind you. You borrowed $150,000 and you paid nothing back.
Right.
And
So if
you
you're
took your
going, if
trip
you
around the
have
world
the
or
mooching
whatever you did.
philosophy, the mentality, and that's just who you are in the rest of your life, then going to a bank for a loan with no intent to pay it back, or even an intent to pay it back, but your philosophy hasn't changed, and so you end up not paying it back because
Right.
you never believed
So,
in that anyway.
so bankruptcy is an option for you.
Yeah.
If bankruptcy is an option, and in the worst case, things, life happens to you and you get to that point, you're going to file bankruptcy because that's the option.
Right.
That's really the only thing I can do. But if you're of a mentality that's growth and income oriented, and independent oriented, you say, there's no way I'm ever going to file bankruptcy. I'm going to get the third and fourth job and the fifth job. I'm going to
Before
work
I
in
even
whatever.
let
I'm going
that.
to sell everything.
Yeah.
We're going to have for every person in the household is going to have 3 jobs,
Right.
or 2 at least, so that we can not have to file bankruptcy because that's not an option for me. I don't have that mentality.
Yeah.
The other thing, and the description I use for debt is if you're stuck in a point that you're living beyond your means, then debt is where you go to. That's the only reason you would take debt, is because you want to buy something that you can't afford yet, that you can't pay for. So you accept debt on a house because most people won't save up $500,000 or $700,000 to buy a house for cash.
That would
You just
be
don't have that
that
ability.
would be a very difficult thing at
Right.
most standards of living to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay rent, you have to live somewhere anyway, and most people aren't willing to live with their parents for the first 30 years of their marriage
30 years, because
and
that's
their
how long it takes.
4 kids and build up the money so that now I can buy the house because I've got the cash, I saved up the cash for it. And in the meantime, what do you do with that cash? So that is that mooching, or the people mooching off of you for that cash? So that kind of gets into it. You some things you're using debt for, and they talk about that's good debt, but the bad debt, consumer debt, because you're living beyond your means because you just need to eat today. And my money is going to run out this week. So since my money's going to run out this week, I have to borrow more money so I can get to the next paycheck.
Uh-huh.
So you borrow money and you borrow more.
Yeah.
And is that mooching? You're using a system, utilizing a debt system to keep yourself afloat. Are there other choices available to you? Would an independent, mature person not take that consumer loan?
I think some people would say that it's a tool that you can utilize. Even if you're mature and independent, you can use debt to your advantage, to your your financial advantage. You build your wealth by using debt.
That mathematically it works out.
Yeah.
You can make the math make sense. If the math makes sense, then why not do it? Why not use it?
Yeah. I mean, out of principle, that'd be the only reason you don't use it. Like, I don't own credit cards. I don't take out loans. I pay for everything with cash.
Right. There's the other thing, and that's kind of the idea of mooching is you're obtaining something without paying for it.
Right.
And whether you take on a debt or you borrow money, you're not paying for that money until you start making the payments. Then you're paying for it over time. You're paying for it down the road, but you're not paying for it right now. If you spend cash on it and you saved up the money, then you're paying for it. You collected enough that you can make a trade for that item that you're getting. If you use debt to get that item, even if it's just paying for your food. If you get a consumer loan and you're buying your food, you're buying your consumables because you need to live for the next 2 weeks before you get paid again.
Uh-huh.
You're not paying for that.
Right.
As you pick up the food. So
right.
that's what makes it mooching. It's mooching if you're living beyond your means. Your means aren't sufficient to meet what your expenses are.
Like if I use an Amazon credit card to buy something on Amazon and then I don't have to pay that card off, like I'm not paying for that actual item on my statement until a month and a half in the future. Am I a moocher? Like all the time? I'm just constantly a moocher?
A strict definition, yes.
Yes.
But a strict definition, you received the stuff from Amazon, they mailed it to you, they got it to your house, and you're not going to give them that fund until they tell you, yeah, your 30 days are up now. So 30 days from the statement date.
Right.
So 45 days after you made the purchase. Then you can get it to be 59 days. Or 61 days.
And then I pay for it, and then I'm not a moocher for that item anymore because I paid for it. But for everything that I purchased in between then and now, I am a moocher.
It's like, can I steal a minute?
Yeah.
That minute is stolen. I mean, you were a moocher for that 60 days, that 60-day time frame. If you had died and the debt was forgiven, so the debt at Amazon is a consumer debt. It's not secured by any collateral.
Right.
So let's say you died at day 2 and you weren't going to pay it for 60 days. The legality is that consumer debt disappears when you die. So no one pays that back.
Yeah.
That's part of the joke from the legal profession. Bounce your last check. Write a big check, your last check, and bounce it. No one gets that money. The money, you just got to use it. So you did mooch your last 60 days. You died right there.
Right.
If you get to the 60 days and you pay it off, then you resolved that mooching, you paid off the debt. But it's still a debt that you paid off. It's an obligation.
Right.
Other people's money. And that's what they talk about as you're running a business. You want to use other people's money as often as possible so that you don't have to put your own money into the business, and that's all you do. But I'm not sure that that's a good idea. We're kind of talking this through to see if we can find something there. So the options of not borrowing.
So paying for things with cash, saving up, doing without. Maybe you'd never needed the house in the first place.
Right. Usually what happens is because of borrowing, because of debt and the availability of it, you get yourself upside down, and then you have requirements.
Right.
So if you go without eating for a couple of days, and you say, I'm just going to eat nothing,
and this is assuming that there's nothing extra that you can just stop doing. Like no more Starbucks every morning.
Right.
Like you've already dropped Starbucks. You've already dropped Netflix.
Yeah, and that's the first step. The first step from the Dave Ramsey principle is get your budget in order. It's before the first step. And the first step is $1,000 emergency fund so that you don't have to use debt, so that anything that comes up, that $1,000 gives you some buffer room. So instead of charging the dinner on a credit card, use that $1,000 if it's a dinner you need to go to because it's a business related dinner or something. But if you can choose not to go to dinner at Denny's tonight just because you felt like it, you make that choice not to. So you're starting to change the philosophy. That's what he's talking about, philosophy. So if you need to drop Starbucks and you need to drop the restaurants, you need to not go to Arby's or to Pizza Hut anymore, you can make those choices. And those are choices to continue being a moocher and go there and borrow the money to do it with, or to be responsible and say, I'm mature and independent and I don't have the money to pay Pizza Hut for a pizza. So I'm not going to eat the pizza tonight. I'm going to make a peanut butter sandwich. And since I don't have any bread, I'm just going to mix peanut butter with honey and jelly on a plate and eat that.
Yes, that's the breakfast, lunch, and dinner of champions.
Yeah. So
peanut butter and honey. I heard that someone could live off of honey, like by itself. Honey is one of the only foods that you could live off of for some time without having anything else.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
I've never heard that.
Could have been clickbait.
Yeah, it may be true.
But
it may be true. Who knows?
I think honey is so amazing that you could live off of it.
Maybe the Dairy Association put that out.
Maybe.
The Honey Association.
Fullfact.org. People cannot live on honey alone. Well, maybe you could live on it for 3 days.
You could live on milk for quite a while by itself.
Oh yes. Yes, not
because
honey,
milk is
but
protein.
Definitely.
Milk feeds, it's built to keep large animals alive that are larger than us. And so if you just drink milk, you can't drink a gallon at a time or you just fill up, but you can drink it through the day. Milk can be your food. Because it's got enough protein. It's got the proteins in it.
It's got the proteins. So somebody on Reddit says that honey and beer both have all of the
everything you
nutrients,
need.
everything necessary to sustain life, but just not
Does
in the
beer have
right
protein?
quantities to be able to do it for a very long
Okay,
time.
yeah. You'd need a lot more protein than that to
Yeah.
keep your body going.
Right.
Yeah,
Honey and beer and peanut butter.
yeah. You could find one thing to add to that. Maybe it's the pretzel. Maybe a pretzel. No. Okay, so
So where were we at?
to get to the, I mean, I gotta get an answer to this. Is
So what's the question
you're in that
then?
position.
I mean, we started talking about what mooching is, but like, what is the reason we're defining it?
How do you expand beyond mooching? How do you
Stop being
advance?
a moocher.
How do you stop that mentality? How's that mentality changed? And what is the valid product for the masses of people that doesn't train them to be moochers? Right now, our consumer product, the consumer debt situation, the banking system, it generates continuous mooching.
Okay. Yeah.
It trains people and locks them in, just like going to school. How do you do school? I mean, we figured out how to do school without being on the conveyor belt. And you just do homeschooling. You do unschooling, you do it however you want to do it, but you're responsible for it. You don't have to follow the prison cycle of the conveyor belt education.
Yeah.
And you can still go to college. You can go to college without having to go to the university and pay them $30,000 or $50,000 a year. There are now college options that you can pay per class, or you can just take them for free. And then probably if you write the book, you can get your honorary degree and still have a PhD.
Yeah.
If you'll write the book first. You can still call you a doctor, and you didn't pay anything for it. You earned $100,000 for writing the book that you studied for and worked it out, and that's your thesis. And it went out to the public recognized you for it. So then you go to the university and they say, we're glad to give you an honorary degree. It's amazing work. So it's possible to break out of the education system. How do you break out of the mooching money system?
Out of the public banking system.
Right. Public banking system, the status.
Are we including in this problem, this mooching problem, the people that mooch off of their parents for years and years as adults?
Right. Yes. Yes. So how do you break that cycle? The trust fund baby, even though there's money there, and he's going to get it in the inheritance anyway. But like the ultimate gift in Jim Stovall's story, you're not going to get it if you don't qualify for it, if you can't handle it. If you're just going to throw it away and continue $25,000 nights in Paris, we're not going to let you have that connection.
Yeah, his motivation was getting the money, though. The only reason he did all of those challenges was so that he could have the money. Well, that was his first intent going into it.
Right.
Well,
his
fine,
first
if
intent.
this is what I have to do.
But by going through all that stuff, he didn't know what it was. He didn't know how much it was. And that's the storyline. It was a challenge his grandfather gave him. Then he did that video and told him, I need you to do these challenges before I tell you what it is that you're going to receive. Because he was the one that was selected out of all of his descendants. I mean, he knew that the other people were just going to throw it away, and they had no choice, no chance. But this guy had a chance of actually doing it. So he said, okay, let's give him a chance. So you learn, and you learn through that. You grow, you mature. He had to mature into the position. And then if the lawyer or the attorney recognized that he did everything appropriately, then he would be given the estate.
Yeah.
So you have to do that. You have to buy that anyway, whether you have a Grandpa Red that's giving it to you or not. How do you make those steps? Or
yeah, in real life, what are the steps?
If you have a friend that owns a ranch in the middle of Colorado that's hundreds of miles big, maybe that's good. But if you don't have that, where do you find that? Where do you find that experience? And how do you help people in that path without being their grandfather? What public service? So the thing I talked to Jim Stovall about, that I've talked about for years, is, and I don't want to make this specifically about that, but a family bank. If a family decides to go into business with each other to help each other succeed, but they do it with a debt structure. That's just locking the family into a mooching society.
Yeah. If that's the only
And
reason the family bank is there, is to give people a place to borrow outside of the public banking,
right,
then you're still the same thing. It's
just another thing.
a horse of a
And that's
different color.
the same reason that, I mean, someone would invest in that family bank to help their sibling or help their relative, is to earn interest on them. So yeah, I'm just going to be the benefactor of their mooching, rather than the bank being the benefactor of the mooching.
Right.
So how do you
mooching.
operate a family, a country, a family? And it's easier to talk about with just a family. How do you operate a family structure that is interested in helping each other, but not promote a mooching attitude? How do you do it? What's the alternative?
Well,
An alternative, or any
alternative. Like Jim Stovall's idea, you could set up challenges, requirements. Like, I have money that I can lend you for this need of yours, and you can have it after you've read this book or something. I don't know. How do you change someone's mind? That's the question, is how do you change someone's mind?
Yeah, and you have to do that with education. So I think the education is a big part of it.
The more you indoctrinate people, the more their minds are going to be changed to you.
It's indoctrinating to positive things. It's identifying independence and progress.
And you
the
talk
challenges,
about
though,
those
don't
things.
disappear automatically. Just because I know I can read Jim Stovall's book and we can outline the 12 steps. We can teach that and train that and try to work it. But if there's no money in the family coffers, so this is what I talked to Jim Stovall about in regard to the family bank. I said, what if you don't have a trust fund? What if you don't have a large amount of money in the family? How do you build that? How do you get it? And so I said, here's the idea. The idea is create a family bank and let the interest, instead of going out to those financial institutions, let the interest come into the family. And that starts building the family assets. So that was the idea. But the idea is on a debt mooching principle.
It is. Yeah.
How do you grow? How do you grow a business? How did Red, I forgot his last name, but James Garner, who played that, how the guy in the story get all of his assets in the first place? And he and his attorney knew each other for 40 years as they were building their assets. And you built a beneficial company that grew up. You're investing in society. You're serving other people is what you're doing.
Okay.
And earning income. So we do that in this society by getting a job or getting a second or third job, teaching music lessons, working nights, working on weekends, helping the local farmer and earning a couple $100 a month from him. That's how we develop assets. You develop assets by going out or by selling something. Dave Ramsey says, sell everything. Find out what has value in your house and sell it, get rid of it.
Right.
Get $30 for that thing that you bought for $150, but that's $30 that you have. You don't have to store that $150 thing anymore. So is that valid? I mean, that's the way people make money. You make money by working or selling something.
Right. But that doesn't change someone's mind. I mean, you have to want to do that. You have to have your mind changed to want to do that. That's how you build your wealth, is you bring in money, or you invest, or you invent.
So it's a school. What we're talking about is schooling, education, an educational system.
Yeah. So I'm picturing this educational system. You're not going to get very far with just assignments. Like, there are so many kids in the public school system who are checked out and they graduate, but only because they knew how to take tests and they knew the algorithm for how to write a good enough essay. So that doesn't change them into an intelligent person automatically. Like, high school diploma doesn't mean intelligence.
And it doesn't feed them independence. It doesn't even mean independence.
It doesn't even mean independence because, I mean, if
they
you
can
didn't
still
go to school, you're going to juvenile detention. So
yeah.
there's a great amount of coercion there. And so and to avoid coercion in a change your mind about mooching and independence and maturity kind of way, you turn it into a conversation. And I think it's going to take some time, but you spend more time individually, one-on-one with somebody, and you talk to them and you share books, but then you talk to them about the books. You can't just give a book and say, okay, and here's your quiz. You have to discuss the ideas of the book, and you discuss the ideas of the whole status of being mature. I mean, it's a life thing, not a education thing. Yeah.
You have to live it.
You have to live it, and you have to live it with. You
have
live
to
it
live
yourself, and you live it with the person that you're attempting to mold into a mature, independent human being.
Who is it? Where did I get this quote from? The world is full of educated derelicts. So it's not education we're talking about. You can still be a nothing, even though you're a PhD. You can be a nothing in life and operating. So we don't want people just to go to academia and learn for the sake of learning. You need to learn practical things. Starting a business is much more beneficial to someone than going to business school.
Yeah.
Trying to run a business, trying to run a construction company and make it work. That's a lot different than reading a book about the construction business.
Right. Experience.
So it's
matters.
Practical experience. It's the practical experience and the experience of doing something. And so I'm thinking more than just getting the next book to read. Read Jim Stovall. Let's get Jim Stovall's book and let's study it. Let's get the 12 points down. Let's make sure everyone understands each of the steps and let's see where we are on it. Like you do Dave Ramsey's 7 steps, baby steps. Where are you? What step are you on? And so we could identify the estate plan. You're on step 3 now. And so once you get that done, and we move on to step 4. But that's checking the boxes, and checking the boxes doesn't necessarily help in your psychological change. But the thing that caused them to have money, I mean, the trust fund is built by serving the community, serving others. You have to have a business that people like, and hopefully that business goes viral and you start making all kinds of money.
A good idea.
So if you can take every idea that you think and see how to monetize it, how to monetize the next idea. But it's identifying how you can serve other people well enough that they're willing to pay for that service. And it's easy on a job. You say, I'm willing to work the hours that you require, and I'm going to do the job that you want, and I'll be dependable and efficient, and you're willing to pay me, I'm willing to do the work. So that's the job. That's the trade-off. If you're deciding to teach music, let's say, and here's what I plan to do, and is there anyone in my town or close to me that would like to try learning music, from me as a teacher? And maybe you get good at it, and you advance, you get better as you go, and then maybe you can move to the next town. So now you get a reputation, and so there's people that will drive for a half hour to come to you to learn music or to learn painting or whatever you decide to do. Learn how to mix peanut butter and honey together.
Right.
In the right attitude with enough protein and milk so that it gives you a full meal, and that's all you have to eat all day long.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where to go now. What do you think? What's the next
so how you get out of
process? It's
how
not necessarily
you get
education.
Yourself.
We don't want to be educated derelicts. We want to drop the derelict part of it. Drop the mooching and drop the derelict.
Yeah, but you have to want to do that in order to do that. So you have to have the change of mind first. How do you get the change of mind? And
how do you work on changing the mind?
Spending more time with people who have their mind changed already, who have that philosophy already. And that might be a luck thing most of the time, because I mean, you're lucky that I'm lucky that you and Mom think the way you do. I don't know if I could be where I'm at now philosophically without
that foundation
that.
first.
Yeah, right.
The fact that homeschool was just part of our life. Conveyor belt was never really part of it.
Right. And work ethic and
so
good
prison
financial
wasn't an option.
sense.
Prison wasn't an option for you.
Right. So how do you increase the luck?
Where did I get it? I do have an uncle who has a child that's been in prison his whole life.
Right.
So I've got a cousin in prison, and the luck of him, what caused him to be that way. I don't know that there was anything, because the uncle is just fine. My uncle's fine. The rest of their kids are very stable and strong and effective. It's just that one that has had issues.
Yeah. Did that cousin spend a lot of time in formative years with people of that philosophy, that prison is an option philosophy?
Most likely. He was in a broken home. He was a child of a first marriage that broke up, not very friendly, and really didn't have a home environment. So the luck, it may be lucky that you happen to grow up with mom and dad at home, or if you grow up with mom somewhere else and dad somewhere else, and they both don't really want to have you. There's probably an issue, and that may have caused a lot of his issues. So you have to espouse that. So that's the education. You have to know what type of environment you want your family to operate in, what mentality you're really searching for. If it's independence and maturity, you have to focus on training that. But it's not just book learning. If it's just book learning, we can read. I mean, I've got 1,000 books on my shelf, probably in my office. I have 1,000 books. I probably have 3,000 in the other room. You can focus on reading all those books, but that's not going to help you internalize it. You have to internalize the book. You have to internalize the idea by talking about it, and by operating it.
Yeah.
So, like Jim Stovall's millionaire map. That's the title of his book, The Millionaire Map. It's a map, and he says, here's the steps, and anyone can do it. Anyone can get to that million status. Let's just start and work on these plans, and you come up with ideas, and you build a business. I think it's business oriented.
Yeah, but can you do that if you don't have the philosophy?
No, that's got to be what the book talks about, is teaching you the philosophy, teaching you how to think about the millionaire map, millionaire mindset, the millionaire next door. There's all kinds of books that you can get, all of them. You can study them, but if you studied them, read them, and knew how to cross-reference them, and you had that knowledge in your head, you're still going to be a derelict if you don't do something.
Yeah.
You still don't have any traction. You've got to have traction. And so it's the traction that you need to work on instead of the banking. So I think to build an estate. So I guess that's the overall question, is how do you build a trust fund?
Okay.
What's the way that a family becomes a trust fund family?
Without cultivating mooching.
Right. To drop from the mooching mentality. Mooching mentality is, and that may be that you have one business that operates well. So Red in the story, the ultimate gift, he's there, all of his kids, 5 or 6 kids of his, they all just were moochers. They were living off of his businesses, and they were running it. They were trying to run it, but not really good. They didn't have anything. So he handed out a business to each of the kids, and that's what they got. One guy got the ranch, one guy got the dairy farm, and whatever it was that he handed out.
Yeah.
And that's up to them whether they succeed at it. And he says, I know they're not going to succeed at it. They did nothing while I was around. I was running everything still. So certainly they're gonna fail in the next few years. And there's that standard statement with businesses: it's shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So the first one builds it in shirt sleeves, builds the business, it becomes strong, and then hands it to his kids as a strong going business. But the kids don't really know how to manage it. They don't grow it beyond that point. They're kind of maintaining it and on a plateau, and then it starts failing. By the time the third generation, the grandkids, have any connection to it, either the business is already blown up, or if they hand it to them on that same plateau, that kid throws it away and goes back down to church list to no money. So you start with no money. If you build something, it's hard to have the next generation continue to grow it. So that's what needs to be taught. It's entrepreneurship, perhaps.
Okay.
Dave Ramsey calls it Entreleadership. That's his group on that side. But it's entrepreneurship. How does that help someone? There are a number of businesses out there that can be operated.
Uh-huh.
And if you provide good service, instead of borrowing money, you operate one of those businesses for a period of time. We were talking about phone sales. Maybe there are phone sale opportunities that if you have the right attitude, you can go into it and you can actually accomplish something and make $1,000 a week instead of borrowing $1,000 a week from someone.
Yeah.
And you can do it between the hours of 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. if you're calling Hawaii, because that's standard hours there. Or if you call Europe, you can do it from 3 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Right.
We're connected large enough as a world, you can do that.
Yeah. And so maybe that's what you do.
Those opportunities, instead of saying as a family, we want to build this by putting you all in debt and keeping you all moochers, because that's all it does. That's all a banking institution can do. Once you're of the trust fund $20 million mentality, you no longer use banks the way everyone else uses banks.
Yeah.
Your checking account there, you keep 10,000 in your checking account, or 1,000, 10,000. You keep enough money so that whatever you write a check on, or whatever your debit cards, your cash flow works still. You're using the bank for a cash flow institution as opposed to a lending institution.
So I had a crazy idea the other week, and James thought it was stupid. I don't know. Maybe
Crazy,
he didn't
stupid.
think it was stupid. It's a crazy idea, nonetheless. So in 30 years, my house is going to be paid off, and I will have however much it's worth in 30 years. I'm going to have that, maybe $1 million. Maybe it'll be worth $1 million in 30 years.
Easily. Yeah.
That's how houses go. But I'm going to have the equity in the house when I die.
The typical house is going to grow at 4% per year. So 30 years times 4. Times 4 is 120%. So it's going to be, right now it's worth $500,000. It's going to be 1.2 million, 1.4 million, something like that.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
Yes.
1.4 million in 30 years. Yeah.
I'm going to be a millionaire in 30 years.
Easy. Your house is going to be a millionaire. Whether you get to do it or not. You might lose that house, but the house will be.
Yeah. Now, when I die, and when my husband dies, this house will be part of our family trust, and it will go to the kids. They can live in it, or they can sell it for the money. They probably will sell it for the money, because I imagine that my kids are going to be independent and mature and have their own houses that they've probably paid off at that point. Like, hopefully when I'm 95 or 100, they've got their own paid off houses, but it will be for them, for my kids.
Okay.
And so my idea was, how about I give my kids the opportunity to buy in to this inheritance, and they can use their income right now to help pay off the house, and then I keep track of what portion of the total loan they've paid, and then that at the end will be their inheritance, the portion of the equity.
Is
that a stupid idea?
I think that's genius. That's kind of what I've been looking for, has been that type of idea to change it. Because in what I've been thinking about is the estate really that runs the family bank. But instead of a family bank, you don't have a family bank. You got to have an entrepreneurial that doesn't identify how to help people, but maybe it does. They're investing in you, so you're giving your kids the opportunity to invest in you, in your estate, in the estate, and for that they get credit in the estate. So a part of that house becomes theirs. the percentage, if you keep it as a percentage. So let's say over 10 years, you have a daughter that puts in an equivalent of 10% of the value of that home, of that loan payoff. And so you say, okay, 10% of this equity now is yours. Before it's split up with your other siblings and grandkids and everyone else, you get paid back that 10% equity. So the house sells for 1.5 million. So there's 150,000 that goes right there first.
Right there. It's yours
before it changes
on paper.
Yeah. And it's
recorded.
And it's the recording against the estate. So the thought on the debt standpoint is if there's a loan, that loan is forgiven as part of the estate distribution. So let's say a person gets to the end and he's been a moocher and he's mooched off $200,000. That $200,000 is seen as an asset to the estate. So it's forgiven, that debt's forgiven. The moocher doesn't have to pay it back. And the first $200,000, I mean, that's his benefit out of the estate. The other person who isn't a moocher gets the $400,000 because now this person is taken out of the inheritance side of that. The $200,000 that was the debt gets shared with the others who weren't in debt.
Yeah.
They get the money that he received earlier, I guess, is how that would work. So the one child that has $200,000 in debt, and there's 4 others, let's say, the other 4 get that first $200,000 out of the estate, and then after that $200,000, they share in what's excessive.
Yeah.
So if you give them the chance to assist in loan payoffs as an investment for future equity in the estate, would people do that? Is there enough incentive for future equity position?
Yeah, you'd have to be thinking forward, thinking about your future. I think you have to care about what's happening in your future.
You'd have to have excess funds to do that first.
You would, right. And I imagine for the next 2 years, my older kid is going to have excess funds like that.
Right.
Before they start a family and start
rolling towards
having their
independence,
own responsibilities.
Rolling towards independence, you either put that money in a savings account, you're using your financial banking institution, which is a mooching institution. They don't want to use that. We want to use the family for that.
Yeah.
Is there any opportunity for that individual? They would put 10% in over 10 years. Can they get that 10% back out before I
die?
Yeah, before the home is sold. Is it possible to get that 10% back out?
Right. And that would be in the form of like a home equity loan, I imagine. That would be.
Yeah. And how do you gauge the value of that equity? I mean, it was there for 10 years. Did it increase in value? Is there a
let's say they just percentage. You'd be like, here in I mean, you need this money, and let's get an appraisal on the house, and your 10% is worth this much now.
Yeah, so you have to go through an appraisal set, or you just say this is what the property tax evaluator says it's valued at. Let's use that when you start paying it off. That's the valuation you're buying into, and that's the percentage as we start. So anytime the property tax valuation is going to be what we use down the road, or an appraisal. I guess you could do either of them. The valuation is always going to be there, whether it's accurate or not.
But so that's that idea. I thought of that kind of as like, how can I avoid just giving my kids free money,
Yeah.
When I die? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've always been against, I've always had a philosophy against mooching anyway. Like, it hurts my stomach when I think of people that I know getting things for free from just because they can.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's going to be given to someone, maybe, like going around and snatching up all of the free stuff that you can and asking for things from your relatives because you know that they can afford it. And I've always been against it. And so I'm just imagining, I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't know if I'm actively trying to figure it out. It's just an idea that came into my head. Is what can I do to avoid my kids just automatically receiving $100,000 each, or however much each.
Yeah.
It'll be $500,000 if the house is still there and we have no other debts. I mean, it's a substantial amount in today's money.
Right. And so the goal is to build that substantial amount. How do you get a family to consciously build to $20 million?
Right. And what is the goal? Yeah, what's the goal for them to do with that inheritance that they receive after? I mean, you kind of have to start that before you die. Long before you die, you have to start the building of wealth. And it's not an inheritance when you die. It's a process. It's a whole thing with the whole family.
That's the
it just
thing
passes on.
That's why I called Jim Stovall with the idea of the concept. I said, your book starts with someone that's a billionaire. What if you don't start with a billionaire and you get that same process going? What would the book look like? to go from shirt sleeves to the C-suite, have a number of corporations operate. How do you get that thing built? To do the Donald Trump move from no money to everything.
Yeah.
Or J.D. Vance. I mean, he's the bigger picture of going from nothing, and he just went to school. He just went military. He got a regular income, and then GI Bill sent him to school, so he got a way to get to school, and then started building businesses, and then went into public service. So that path is available for everybody. Nobody really talks about it. We don't talk about it in that's the entrepreneurship side. Your daughter is working because she wants to, because is that work environment advancing? Could she advance faster?
Are you asking specifically right now? Can she advance?
Not necessarily. Is that a question a family should be interested in and assisting in? I mean, if I happen to see a position that she potentially would like, should the grandfather come in with an idea that says, why don't you look at this, or would you be willing to look at this?
Yes, I believe yes. I think that would be fantastic if everyone in the family were looking out for everyone else's well-being in that way.
Not well-being, but their entrepreneurship, their career advancement, the Entreleadership of the family.
Yeah, well, that's the well-being, though. I mean,
well-being is more like welfare, though. That's what I think.
Yeah.
You guys doing okay? You guys healthy? Eating right? We don't care about eating.
Look out for everyone else's well-doing.
Well-doing. Okay. Well-doing, not well-being. I don't care how you eat necessarily, and maybe that's a part of it too. Because home production and storage, if we're going to be healthy, you got to be able to be healthy. That's that 0th tier. You got to be healthy if you're going to serve the family at all.
You got to take care of yourself.
But the first community, your family should be able to serve each other and help each other with the steps that are necessary to succeed, fully succeed.
Yeah, you become a real tight-knit community.
So the trust fund it's good if the grandfather, let's say just the old guy, the red, builds all his businesses, and with he and his attorney, they've done that by themselves, and they didn't share that knowledge with any of their kids. Would the kids have been better if they shared that knowledge with them, if they had a board meeting with all 20 of them every month and said, this is what we're working on. What's the idea? The next concept we're going to try to do is sell this piece of the ranch and buy a shopping center downtown LA.
Yes, assuming that everyone in the family is of the same philosophy. This reminds me of the Peaky Blinders family meetings.
Okay, right.
I think that whole idea, having a family board meeting for the family trust foundation, everyone working together to build the wealth. It's maybe someday you could have it be everyone's full-time job is to manage the family's wealth.
Right, and that's what trust funds do. They have one of the kids earn $50,000 a year just by managing the investments involved in the trust fund, and that's really how the child that puts 10% into your house gets the money back at some point. Because if everyone is successful, excessively successful, and everyone's making $20,000 a month, and they have no debt, there is an excessive amount of funds. You're building a trust fund.
Yeah.
And then you have to find where to put it. Where are you going to donate to? And that's something people talk about, their charitable foundation. What charity or what project are we going to put money into this month? Because we have $10,000 that needs to go somewhere, and we're agreeing to spend it out as a family. So let's discuss, where do you want to go? What do you want it to help?
Yeah.
And maybe you just find the local person that needs a roof on their house and say, okay, we're going to put the roof on this guy's house because there's no way they can do it. And we don't want them to go into debt. And we just want to provide that roof. So you pay the company, get a new roof, and you say, enjoy it. But that's the service to the community. But the only reason you have $10,000 that month to spend is because your family as a group made $500,000 that month and only spent $50,000 to live.
Yeah.
So if you account for it, you don't have to borrow money and expect to earn interest from each other. But you do have, so what it is helping people's business succeed. Mind each other's business instead of the mind your own business concept.
Yeah.
And be open enough to let someone else mind your business. A boardroom family, a board operated. So when your daughter gets a job, that job is discussed with every uncle and aunt and grandparent, and say, how can what's my best options from here moving forward? The child needs to be interested in the advice they get from the board.
Right. Can this operate successfully if you have family members who just want nothing to do with any of it and want to live their own life and keep everything private? They don't want to share opinions, and they don't want other people sharing their opinions with them.
That they don't want to be part of the community. So in talking about our community service, they don't want to take level 2 to talk anything about a level 1 thing. They want to keep it separate.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about in this concept is like banking. If you run a business, your business is off in level 2. So people that say I don't want to be part of that association, how do you deal with them inside of an estate?
You can still run it. You just run it separately.
Yeah.
They're just not part of it. Maybe there's a standard inheritance that they will get, but they're just not going to be included in the whole trust.
In the business side of it.
Right. The wealth building.
So instead of
their kids will have still the opportunity to come in if they want to, but it'll be at a lesser benefit as a result of their parents' unwillingness to participate.
Where do you put money? So that's what you said. Where you put money is towards other people's obligations. You're using excess. So people who receive income more than their needs. So they're living well within their means. The individual zeroth person silo type is saying, I'm going to be a miser and I'm not going to, this is my money and it's going in my savings account and I'm going to be in control of it. So I'm not going to share it with my siblings or my parents or my kids or my grandkids. It's my money and I'm going to use it until I die. When I die, then I no longer have control of it. So the state will decide where it has to go, where my closest relatives are, who deserves to have that money, whether they deserve it or not. So this concept is a way of saying, if you're okay not putting that in the silo, let's just record it in the estate. So you still open an estate book. You're banking, but you're not banking on debt and interest payments. You're banking on equity, business equity, perhaps. So if a brother or a son needs money to start a business and you can put money into that business, you're recording a percentage of that based on the current value. And then what it grows to, it grows to that. That's just an accounting question of how you account for what someone put towards that success of that business or that job. Say you need to buy a certain clothes to participate in this job. You need steel-toed boots, and that costs $200 a pair. Go and buy steel-toe boots for somebody to go out and get the job that they need to get. It's not necessary. It's not alone, but it's using assets using assets to assist someone. How do you track that? How do you track that
Yeah, that's
without
not
mooching?
like if you're doing that, you're not really considering it charity or mooching. If you're buying someone something that they need to advance their life, it's like it's an investment in their life, but you're not going to get anything outside of karma. Like you pay it forward in your life, and I'm not getting anything out of this except for good feelings. And I don't know, maybe somebody might think that their mansion in heaven is a little bit bigger because they did something good. But
So that's how we do it in society right now. That's how we do it in society now. If you build a business together, you expect a partnership. You form a partnership. You're expected that you're going to each provide information or resources to that business, and the business is going to then be split up, or income and everything else comes back and it's split up between the two of you. Expenses are split up between the two of you as a partnership.
right.
So if you operate the family instead of just, if you call the family a business, I don't know how to get past that step. You buy boots for somebody, it's a consumable item, but it's like the expenses in a business. They have to be paid, and that, do the profits come back to pay for those boots, or you you can identify a certain position. Headhunters that find people jobs, there's a plan, and actually it's in student loans now. I forgot what the term is called, but it's you're paying a percentage of your future income back to the student loan. Or if you're hired on a position, you're making $500,000 a year, you owe 10% to the headhunter that got you that position for 5 years.
Yeah.
So you have a given time frame that you're paying back on that status. It's called income sharing instead of debt for student loans.
Okay.
So maybe there's an income sharing agreement. If I don't have the money to get this education that I need to get this position, but I want to get this position, and we help give that position, then you just take an income sharing portion back to the family business. It's not a family bank. It's not paying anything else. It's paying a portion of what your advancement is back to what had to be paid to get you there. And then people pay it back. So it's got to be a lot more. But income sharing, it's not interest.
It's kind of like a loan.
It's kind of like a loan. You're recording it. You're agreeing, though. So that's where we start with mooching. You're going to mooch, and maybe you'll pay it back. Maybe you won't. Maybe it'll just come out of the estate, or maybe we'll forget to record it. It's a gift. Gift is still mooching. But if you say,
what if in this income sharing situation, like you get the position and you're paying the headhunter, and then you decide you don't want to work anymore, and so you stop, you still pay the headhunter 10% of your non-income now? Like, how is that guaranteed to
the headhunter
pay out?
Has the potential for loss as well? Yeah, and that's the idea with the school student loans. So the school has a chance of losing money because part of those student loan arrangements is if you make more than $300,000 or $180,000 a year, they put a reasonable cap. The average earnings in this industry is $80,000 for a starting wage. So if you start in this industry over $80,000, then you owe 10% for 5 years. And so potentially they get $120,000, $150,000 job, and they're paying $15,000 back, and they end up paying a lot more back than the cost was. But the other potential is they get a $50,000 a year job because they're not able to do it. They can't get the $80,000. It's not available, or for whatever reason, they pay nothing back to the student loan, and the time expires, and the family doesn't get anything back. The school gets nothing back for their investment.
All right.
So it's on the school to make sure they're educated well enough and that they know what the market is, and they can get them the position. They help that person succeed in their position because the school needs to get paid back. So the family, in buying boots and education for somebody, is interested in helping as the board of directors for that person, as long as they're willing to listen and meet the objectives. You'd really benefit by reading this Millionaire Map book. with your business, what you're trying to run right now. So I'm going to recommend that you read this. Would you be willing to do that? Hopefully the person says, yeah, I'll read that.
Yeah.
And try to make things better in my business, my work environment, get the next promotion that comes up easily, be overqualified for it, know that I'm overqualified, and then ask for the promotion, and they don't have any option but to accept it. Yeah, you need to move up to that position. We're going to raise your rate $10 an hour. So if that were put together as a structure, as opposed to a banking, there's a possibility that the family gets nothing back, that the person just dies out in a consumable idea.
But the family is particularly interested in the plan being a success.
Right. In every plan being a success.
So, right. And so everyone will be
kind of really
putting
done
forth
that.
effort.
We do that already, and people do that in society. You're wanting to help your sister be successful in their business she's just starting, or the career she's just entering, and offer whatever advice you can, you offer whatever help. But this would just structure it that there is a family trust, a family business, the business of the family business, to make sure every member of that business is operating their full potential. And
that's the business of the family, is everyone making sure everyone is operating at their full potential and being effective.
Yeah. So I think we've come to the conclusion a bank is a mooching institution, a business is not a mooching institution. And if you just identify that they own a piece of that business, so the kids and the estate, the business of a family is the estate that it's, gosh, I don't have that connection yet. I don't know what the business of the family is.
This topic deserves a lot more thinking and talking.
I think we got to the point it needs to be business type, entrepreneurial. It needs to be directed that way, not just education. Education is too shallow.
Yes.
So to change the philosophy, you need action behind it. That's what actually changes your mind on things, is if you're working on it, you're acting on it.
Right.
It's care. It's the care and entrepreneurship and the boardship, allowing the family to operate as a board of directors in your individual life. And you indicated, what if someone doesn't want to participate that way? What if it's just too much information for them to share? I don't want to tell you anything about what I do at my work because it's all private. If you just let that person operate outside, they don't get the benefit of the family, like Peaky Blinders. If a person goes off rogue and does their own thing, they're cut out of the family money now. You don't have the family protection behind you anymore. And I don't know if it's necessary protection. That's the thing about it, because it needs to not be a mob. That's the way mobs are all designed around this family business
This
idea.
family business has to be not a mob.
Right. How do you make it reasonable and not be a mob? Not be the Godfather type idea. So, yeah.
Well, do you have any lawyer friends you could bring into this conversation?
Plenty of lawyer friends, but
is Jim Stovall still alive?
Yeah, he is.
Can we call him up?
I could get Jim's opinion on this. So, I talked to you 10 years ago about this, or 5 years ago. I don't know when it was. It was probably 2012, 12 years ago when I talked to him. But yeah, he's still alive. He's right. He's got new books. I still get his weekly email letter. So I'm sure he'll remember me. Be easy.
Oh, yeah.
Continue that conversation.
Oh, yeah. It's the family bank guy.
Right. I knew that was going to fail all the way. Yeah, whatever. So that at least, I've talked it through. We've got that. Okay. We've been under 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
and we'll still have more to say about this too.
Yeah, it's still only,
think about this
we
all
barely
day.
started. We barely started the concept. So,
yeah.
But at least we identified what the concept is and what the challenge is, why it's such a problem, and where we could possibly look for our next inspiration, the next guidance. That's what people are always looking for. And if we can, if the system that we create can provide that inspiration and leadership and advising internally in a family that operates, that's what I'd hope to be the case. Everyone has things they've tried. and everyone needs to know what everyone's tried. That will allow us to be much better.
Yeah. Okay, very cool.
Okay.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen. We'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts. Please continue the conversation with us at doyouhaveaminuteconversations@gmail.com. Your participation means the world to us, and we look forward to having more exciting conversations with you in the future. Take care now.